Hi everyone, and welcome to this presentation on AI or AI here. AI Captain, you get the joke. And we're going to talk a little bit here about the impact it's going to have on content. Of course, content is our bread and butter, of course, and it's very important for us as an organization to really have a view on where we think this technology is going to take us and the impact that it's going to have on us as a supplier of a product that is mission critical in the content process for a lot of our customers, but also is influenced by what our competitors are doing in the market. So I'm going to take you through some of our thoughts as a business with the impact that AI is going to have on our product, but also the way of working of everybody that's involved in content. So hopefully there's a few things in here to trigger you a little bit and help you understand a bit how we see things. So I guess the first thing to say is, where are we coming from, right? If you think about content creation, and of course, as anybody here will probably know, having seen any of Folion's marketing collateral campaigns in the past, as far as we're concerned, Folion and of course all the competitor tools that do the sorts of things that we do are really about the next generation, moving on from that kind of more static legacy content that we've all used and to some extent still use today. We're talking about the PDF, right? So that a personal document format, that kind of non-dynamic, often information dense, rich documentation that of course forms the backbone of a huge amount of communication across all kinds of processes, across all kinds of departments within businesses. And historically, it's often been these kind of things right here. So we've got a pretty uninspiring kind of white paper template here. A lot of text, not really anything driving us through the content, right, to help us understand where we should focus. There's a little bit of design work in there, but it's not very inspiring. It's not very engaging. And of course, something like Folion enables people making content and working in communication to really take this onto the next level. But it's this static legacy format is where we've come from. And of course, if you think what's possible today and where people are busy with today, it's vastly different how we can build our content and how we can share our stories. And of course, that landscape now in terms of how do we produce content, how do we share information with our audiences, whether it's inside our businesses, outside our businesses, whether we're trying to build brand, whether we are onboarding new employees, whether we are communicating to our shareholders, whatever it might be, we've now got a lot of formats and tools at our disposal to really help us to get that message across and drive the kind of desired behavior that we're looking for. A little bit of research here from the Content Marketeer organization published last year. And this shows just how many things we as marketeers and communication professionals are working with and trying and leveraging to help us get that mix right, to help us try and make sure that we produce something interesting, relevant, engaging, that, as I've said, will help us to help our message to land. And I think probably the most important thing here, if you look at the top, video is huge. It's huge and it's getting bigger and it's getting more important. And I think anybody that's not leveraging video, not thinking about how to use video everywhere we look, is probably going to struggle because it's become second nature. It's become our default position for consuming content. We are spending less time reading. We've got less patience and interest in reading. Sad as you might find that, I personally still have quite a lot of books at home, but they almost feel like, antique artifacts that are there for decoration more than anything else. But of course, this is how people want to consume content today. And we're putting a lot of short form content out on social. We are still writing articles and blog posts, trying to drive engagement, testimonials, newsletters. There's still a role here for that longer form rich content, but what you see is people are starting to address the fact and realize the fact that it's becoming less effective. And whereas maybe if you spoke to a content marketeer 5 or 10 years ago, maybe even now, how they would have talked about building that customer journey up, the kind of content that you're producing, trying to drive people through the phases of a buyer journey. There was all sorts of long form content in there. And what this is saying is, the people who are doing this day to day are just seeing that become less and less effective. And it's that short form, easily digestible, snackable content that is really becoming the backbone of successful communication. I think taking that into account, it's maybe interesting then to just go a little bit further down that road, right? So if we're talking about content and what does the future hold, I want to talk to you today a little bit about kind of two axes here, if you like. So on the one hand, AI and technical innovation is going to dramatically influence how we consume content, which of course by definition then has an influence on how we're going to create content, the type of content we want to make for us to be successful. So that content creation piece being the other, right? What are the audience habits and behaviors, and how does that influence how we try to build the right content to reach them at the right time, in the right place, in the right way? That's always been the core of marketing. That will continue to be the core of marketing, but we're having to change a little bit how we go about doing our work. So I think the first thing, if I was to talk about trends that are seriously influencing anybody that works in communication, obviously we've got this attention span issue. I think most people will be aware of it. There's a goldfish swimming around there. We've talked, for as long as people talked about attention spans, about goldfish having 9 seconds. We've now got to the point where, according to most research, the human attention span has decreased below that, 8.5 seconds, which technically means, we've got less ability to concentrate on something complex and engaging than that fish swimming around in the bowl. We've got a gentleman here sitting on his boat. He's managed to miss that he's got a fin whale or a humpback whale or something swimming right next to him, something that most people would find probably the experience of a lifetime, maybe even, and he's not managed to escape past his Twitter feed, because we know now, right, that the way that social media has been built and the way that that information is presented to us by these platforms and by these channels, it triggers and develops the same psychochemical reactions. The brain chemistry, it works on us in the same way that drugs do. We become addicted. Our physical reaction to this continual stimulation, continually being, triggered by all sorts of short form snippets of content. What's next? What am I missing if I don't get into this? And we can't let it go. But we also can't keep our attention on something longer when that's presented, and that's a real challenge for everyone in marketing, right? So that's something that we're all, of course, acutely aware of. I think if you look further than that, so in addition to the fact that it's becoming increasingly difficult to capture and hold someone's attention, one of the tools that we have at our disposal to try and counter that is the fact that we are increasingly trying to personalize our content. This huge, unfathomable mass of data that we are collecting around everyone at all times. Continually the stats, something like, the data that was created in the last year is X what was created in total up to that point. Again, we've all heard these numbers, but it's staggering. But of course, it does present an opportunity when the technology becomes powerful enough to really analyze and leverage that information and turn that into useful profiling. That gives us the opportunity to deliver a message that's really, really tailored to the people that we want to reach and the people that we want to engage with. And that's, of course, something that we're all trying to do more of. But of course, it's not easy. And of course, there are a number of challenges around that in terms of managing that data that allows us to build the profiles. But we'll come on to that in a minute. Here we go. It's an example. I don't know if anybody gets locked into their Google feed these days. I find it fascinating just how dynamic it is, and I kind of start trying to steer it myself sometimes and just think, how does it react if I do this or I do that? But again, hyper personalized information being delivered. These are the most important and interesting things going on in the world today that we think you will enjoy. And of course, the more you interact with that, the more data you feed that algorithm, the better it thinks it knows you, and the more detailed and specific it tries to deliver content for you, right? So phenomenally interesting technology, phenomenally valuable, but also scary and challenging in its own way. We talk about the rabbit hole, right? I've seen it in my algorithm sometimes where if I happen to read 2 or 3 articles on the same topic in fairly close proximity, before I know it, that's the only information I'm seeing on my feed. For example, I'm a bit of a golf fan. I was checking in over the US Open over the weekend. I don't think I've got anything that isn't golf related in my feed at the moment. So it just goes to show you there's incredible power and intelligence there, but it can very quickly take you in a very narrow direction, whereby you're kind of cementing and building out these very niche communication channels with people that are potentially not interested in that. I enjoy diversity in news, but very quickly I can find myself going down a narrow path. So again, fascinating technology, something we need to be really aware of, but also to be careful that these algorithms don't take us down the wrong path. Also, something that's fundamentally changing how we find and consume content is search. So of course, a world before Google is again kind of almost unimaginable. I am just about old enough to remember using Yahoo before I knew what Google was. But of course, we have come to the point now where any question that needs answering, expertise is no longer in the command of the highly educated and the well-studied. Anybody can answer any question they want to. But of course, what AI is doing with this is taking it beyond, Google providing us with a list of resources where we can go and potentially find the information that we need to answer our question. It's starting to provide context and deeper information. It's starting to gauge why you might want to know that and what might be interesting supplementary information. We're getting to the point now where, natural language queries can produce really detailed contextual answers. So it's not just serving up a resource where you can go and learn more. It's telling you exactly what you wanted to know. And that's also going to fundamentally change how we leverage the internet, and how resources need to be organized and presented. So again, a real sea change. So if you take those things together, right, so the demand to make it hyper engaging in an era where we've got this tiny attention span and we're continually being challenged and stimulated from all directions, where we really almost ignore anything that isn't hyper personalized, and whereby tooling is starting to provide much more detailed contextual answers to our questions than we did before. What you start to see is that this content positioning really starts to become about a personal journey and guiding people towards the information they need to answer very, very detailed questions. And that in itself brings up a number of challenges, right? So when you've got this huge amount of data at your disposal, where you've got the tooling that can start to identify patterns or build connections between things that previously weren't connected, and we've got a lot of personal information in there, very detailed information that can allow us to intimately understand someone, then of course we get a lot of these questions coming up around security and governance and responsibility and risk management. And of course, we know, right, that GDPR is a big thing. We know that particularly in Europe, there is a lot more responsibility on us as businesses to be more careful and more considered and more protective and more deliberate with how we take care of our customers' data. And of course, as we also know, a number of the big, the mega tech businesses, they dance a fine line with this, and sometimes they go over that fine line. Mr. Zuckerberg here has had to open the company wallet a few times now in Europe for not taking care of customers' data in the right way. But this is something that's increasingly going to fall in all our laps. Privacy concerns, if we have intimate data around people, and not necessarily personally intimate, but just enabling us to do really rich and detailed profiling, that's a huge responsibility for us to take care of that. If we get to the point where we're not only leveraging other large language models, tools like GPT, but as many companies are now doing, building their own AI software, we have to be incredibly conscious about how we are training and teaching that AI, and that we're avoiding unfairness and bias. There are a lot of meaty ethical questions that start to arise when we start to get into this, right? I don't want to get into it now, but there are challenges a lot of legal teams and businesses are struggling with. If you think about intellectual property, again, we're hearing a lot of stories in the news, right, aren't we, from musicians, for example, that are, suddenly their work is being leveraged to produce music that sounds like them, while they never gave permission to have their data be used to enrich machine learning and artificial intelligence. Again, incredibly challenging questions. Accountability. So we're building these systems that are capable of delivering incredibly complex and incredibly detailed output. Who is responsible for behavior that happens based on that? Who is accountable when things don't go as they should? How do we ensure transparency around the process about what can and can't be inferred from AI generated results? So there's a huge amount going on here, and above all that, maybe even basic questions around quality assurance. How do we ensure that the quality of the output is where it needs to be when it quickly becomes so huge and so massive that it becomes difficult to really keep control of it? So big existential meaty questions that we're all going to have to deal with and wrestle with as we go further with this technology. But I think the most important thing to think about now, given that you're all here today, is, it's all very nice, the theory and the philosophical discussions around what we do with this technology and the impact it's going to have on us. But of course, we're busy with content today. We're marketeers and communications professionals. We have this tooling at our disposal. We have objectives. We have audiences to reach. We have messages to communicate. What does it mean today? And I think, just to give some ideas about what we see as the most important things in the short term, and where we see companies being successful, organizations being successful with their content, there's a number of relatively simple things that are achievable today without going too deep into some of these bigger and complex problems. So I think the first thing to say is, I mentioned a little bit at the beginning, is video. So I was at a conference in Scandinavia a couple of weeks ago with some of the team, and it was a conference all about video and using video and the role of video in marketing, and it was really, really interesting to hear just how fast and deep people are going across all kinds of industries and all kinds of businesses to ensure that video is at the core of their strategy, because they are just simply seeing from their data analysis, from their campaign performance, from their engagement metrics, that if you haven't got video in there, you will not perform. It is the default. If it's not available, it's almost like it's not worth consuming. And of course, if you think about that need to grab attention and make sure you create headspace in your audience to get your message across, just from a pure interaction and engagement perspective, the moving image will grab your attention. It will pop out of that feed. It will come to the foreground versus the more static content. If you want to claim attention, video is the way to do it. So we believe so strongly that committing to embedding video as much as you can in your content is absolutely critical if you're going to capture and maintain attention. I think the search thing is also super, super important. So, a lot of us will be familiar with chatbots on websites. We're very quickly going to see something like that being much more relevant and embedded in content itself. So think about, whereas originally you might have had Control F, very soon you're going to have AI assistants within content steering you towards the information you need. We've got to the point now where we don't even want to read a table of contents. We don't want to look through an index. If it's a big piece of content, there's lots of rich information in there, but we only want to know X or Y. Help me find X or Y. And if I can't do that quickly and easily, you've probably lost me, and I'll go and try and consume my information somewhere else. So using AI and using bot tooling is definitely going to be something that's going to become more almost like a standard practice across content, just to help people find what they need, be more efficient, more effective in their time. And the more you can do that, the likely you are to get the engagement and the interaction with your content that you're looking for. And of course, personalization is a big one, right? So I think if you think about what's already been possible for a long time, so sort of token-based personalization where we can swap out text fields in content, just to provide somebody's name. We've all seen these slightly uncomfortable occurrences where it goes wrong and you just see name in between arrow brackets instead of someone's actual name. But of course, this is something that has been possible for a long time, and it's something that we have now brought into the platform ourselves and are making it more readily available for you to be able to personalize your content and deliver a more engaging, personalized experience. But again, this is something that's going to go further as we get further down the road of what that big data and that machine learning can do. There's going to be opportunities around user profiling, be able to hook into other platforms that have detailed information around someone, and really be able to tailor that dynamic content experience, serving videos or pages or blocks that are really tailored to what the specific needs and the specific requirements of that individual audience member. And we'll increasingly see, hyper-personalized advertising also coming into content. Not something that perhaps is super relevant for us within what we offer within the Folion platform, but of course everywhere that digital content is delivered, everywhere engagement is building up a profile, everywhere that data is being collected around someone, that is also enriching a profile somewhere else that can then contribute to serving hyper-personalized messaging. And again, that's something we're increasingly going to see more of in content. And as that competes for our attention, it's going to make it even more important that the core of that content, the core of that document, or the core of that microsite is really, really tightly aligned to what it is that your audience wants and needs to consume. So if we think about that, maybe just a little step back from that, right? What is also important to remember? So AI, of course, is an incredibly powerful tool that can allow us to do an incredible amount in terms of improving the relevance and the interest of the content that we create. And it can also help us to speed up, can help us to lower our, under the table costs associated with building and delivering content. Incredibly important. What we have to remember, though, is that the creativity is not something that anytime soon this is going to help us with. And delivering something unique, engaging, surprising, humorous, threatening, whatever it might be, whatever emotion that we try to trigger and to develop with the content that we create, and that unexpected experience, that ability to combine things in a way that are surprising, that is not what AI is good at. And that is where the role of the marketing professional, the creative professional, the designer, the copywriter, whatever it is, they're still going to add incredible value there, and they're going to turn it into something that's genuinely compelling. And that's where I think the most important thing is that we continue to focus as marketeers and communications professionals, that we get that balance right. So AI and machine learning and automation, incredible opportunity to get more done, to take those first steps down the road, to drive efficiency, to deliver more output, to get more done, to take away a little bit of the mind-numbing, boring first steps that often sit in content creation. But that's only going to get you so far down the road. There's going to be no substitute for effort on the human part to get to the right result. And I think it's interesting just to share a little example with you of something that we've done within the marketing team over the last few months, that I think is a really interesting use case of the combination between the power of AI but the incredible power of genuinely creative people. And these are some advertisements that we've run. We recently started doing more campaigns into the verticals where we know that we have a lot of happy customers. So, for example, healthcare here and higher education, where we have a lot of customers that we're super, super proud of. And we were like, how can we really try to build more specific messaging, right, for these people? And how can we tailor a message that we think will really make a step in terms of the engagement and interaction that we see versus the more standard horizontal campaigns that we run to all industries where we just try to position the product. So what we did here is we used AI to create a highly tailored visual that feels like a photograph to the message, the core message of the campaign. So of course, when we talk to universities, one of the big things is that we talk about is the prospectus, the university brochure, and we wanted to challenge them to think about how many of those incredibly expensive and resource-consuming physical brochures end up in the bin. Handing out thousands of them at open days at university, students picking them all up, flicking through them and throwing them away, right? We wanted to really challenge them on that. But, you know, finding a stock image that's going to align perfectly to that piece of the message, not to do. So Chiara, our lead designer, she played around with DALL-E and managed to train it to build images that we felt really aligned tightly to the core of our message. So we've got this bin here with flyers and brochures in it, and on the right here we've got this hospital waiting room with all kinds of pamphlets and hard copy medical brochures just gathering dust. And we've seen these ads perform really, really well. So we're getting great engagement on these. They are performing significantly better than the horizontal stuff that we did before and some of the more generic messaging that we've done. These really grab people's interest and are performing really, really well. But the point I want to make here, this wasn't just type in, hey, dusty brochures in hospital waiting room, whatever. There was a huge amount of work for Chiara to turn this into something usable that was really what we wanted. So it got her down the road, but if it wasn't for the work she'd put in over the top, it wouldn't have got to this end result. And that's incredibly important. And it takes me onto this topic a little bit, whereby, you know, we're all using GPT more. I imagine a lot of people are using tools like DALL-E to work on the image generation stuff as well. Super, super important. But even that prompting itself is a skill that people are going to have to learn. You know, you get in what you put out with AI, and I think that's something that we're increasingly going to see across all the marketing disciplines. People have to learn how to use this properly, and that in itself is going to be a really, really important and high value skill, because if you're going to get really high quality output, you've got to know how to use the tool itself. And then after you've got that output that's got you down the road, it's about that human creativity, that human interaction, and about maybe above anything else, that collaboration, that brainstorming, that bouncing ideas off each other. Okay, we've got here, guys. What do we think? How can we make it better? How can we fine tune it? How can we improve it? That's how you're going to get to a brilliant, brilliant end result. And I think that would be probably the key takeaway from me for all this that I hope to give to you today, that make use of it. AI is an incredible value driver for the marketing department, but it is not going to get you to the end result that's going to make a difference if you still don't have that human intellect over the top of it. So don't be afraid that AI is going to take your job, but do understand that the people who know how to use AI properly just might. And that's it. But just before I sign off and let you get on to the next part of the program, got a little message here from Joost for you. Joost, our CTO, one of the founders of the company, as many of you will know. And he's going to tell you a little bit about some of the things that we're doing with AI, just to give a little taste of where our research efforts are, the things that we're working on, the things that we are looking further down the road to see if we can use to create even more value for you guys in our product.
Hello everyone, thanks for being here today. I'm sorry I cannot join you today, but I do want to share you some amazing stuff that we're working on and developing with AI. And it's not only experimenting. We also have a feature already in the platform being used by customers, and if you like to use it, you can use it yourself as well. Contact us and we'll enable it for you. Let's give you a short demo of AI translations. Here we are in the editor, and what we've done is create a text assistant that will help you with, in this case, translating the content that you have on your page. Traditionally, you would maybe extract all the content from this document, put it in a spreadsheet, send to all the translation agents, have them translated, and put it back in the platform. We believe that can be a lot easier. What we've done is we've added a text assistant from the menu. Over here, I can choose which assistant. For now, it's only translating, and we can select the language. Let's go for Dutch, and then we can choose the formality, right? For now, I'll go for informal. And when I hit save, it will immediately, within seconds, translate all the content to Dutch. As you might know, AI is not 100% accurate. It's very important. You still need to curate the content. So you still can send the preview towards the translation agents. Make sure they check everything, add comments where it's incorrect, or you can give them access to the content builder, even easier, have them change everything correctly, and within hours you're done to publish the document. But that is not all. Behind the scenes, we're working on different functionalities to help you speed up content creation. Think about transforming any kind of content into Folion. With the brand kit and the templates that you prepared, you will always be on brand. Or think about the tips and tricks AI can give you based on visitor data and the content that you have to improve the engagement of your content. That's all. Thanks for now, and I wish you a good day.
Yeah, so there you have it. That was Joost giving me a little sneak peek about what we're cooking in the kitchen, and some really exciting stuff there, right? That's hopefully a bit further down the road going to add some real value. And of course, you've got that translation thing that's already available to have a play with if you'd like to. Then just let us know and we can sort that out. But you know, a lot of innovation going, a lot of investment in trying to make sure that we keep Folion at the front of what's happening in content creation, and super exciting. But that's it for me. Thanks for tuning in and for celebrating Folion turning 10 with us, and see you again soon.